Hey there, I'm Parker Rex. I led tech for a startup that did well over $50 million in sales when we sold. We did more than that, but when we got hammered by VC backed companies. And after that, I did a bunch of different startups that didn't work. They were silly ideas, but it required learning all this technology and learning basically all the different things. And so now I have been using AI pretty much every day for the last 3 years and then started offering these services into businesses. And I also have a community of people that learn from me. So I know a fair amount about this stuff. And I'm just always trying to figure out how do you push it further. So example of that is I trained 50 different GPTs on all the iOS frameworks. I'm using these things like crazy. So on this channel, I just yap about stuff that I find helpful in the AI news world. You can get that from anywhere, but it's a lot of noise. So I talk about that if it's relevant. And then I basically just kind of riff through some strategy on what I'm doing. And I talk about builds that I'm going to do. If you want to watch me actually do the builds, those are on another channel. So that was a long intro. But yeah, this is actually what I was working on today. If you're interested in Supabase and N8N, then I just forked the N8N project that does self-hosting for vectorization and all the tings that you need, but having trouble getting it running with all the tings. So if you want to go learn that, check out the Parker X Builds channel. So first of all, Q&A. Let's see if we got any questions. A good way to get my attention is to ask a question. So good breakdown on vibe coding. An ongoing delusion is thinking that you can input idiot and output working software. For now, it seems like the output is still dependent on the quality of the input. Right. Even a good one to check out, Andre Karpathy, the father of vibe coding, aka the guy who led OpenAI to victory on Autopilot, previous director of AI at Tesla, founding team at OpenAI. He recently posted this about how he built a little app. And so you can actually see how he talks to it. One thing to notice is he's starting from scratch and he's building a feature. This is not a company, this is a feature. So it ticks things down. I mean, it could be a company, but I don't think it's like a lot of staying power. But you know what's funny is I tried to open this last night and it didn't open because so many people probably tried to open it that it busted the page. Okay, we got one of them to open. So let's see how he does it. Look how long this chat is. So we're coding an iOS app. Oh wait, we got the original one to open. Let's look at how he does it. Can you take me through writing an iOS app? I'm just downloading and installing. Okay. So get steps on how to do it. Cool. It's for weight loss tracking. Again, something really, really simple, right? He's vibe coding a feature that will be an app. These are bespoke, very specific things, no existing code base. Calculator plus UI. So he goes on. I don't need to go and look at all these things, but it is helpful just to see how he says, okay, status update. This is what we're going to do next. Here's my idea. Here's what we need to do. Here's what I want it to do. This is the primary action. Some math around it. Like what's funny is this little prompt alone is better than a lot of the prompts that vibe coders are putting in. Let's look at his next one. Now we add two possible buttons. Simply one button is 100 and one is negative 100. So yeah, again, very, very specific, exactly what you want. An example reinforcing what he wants. So in case the previous sentence wasn't clear, then he gets it. Then he's saying there's some usability errors. And he ends it there, and then he goes over to here and then takes the existing thing. So he provides context, gives a big block of text, and then asks for a plan. Tells it some new context. Yeah. So this would be good to check out if you're trying to learn how he vibe codes. What breaks down though is this is, let's see, he has an import statement, so that's where that file starts. Let's see if we can see how many files he gave. This is all one file. Still, yeah. So he gave one file. That's awesome. It's a single file. It wouldn't work as well with a lot of files. So yeah, iPhone 2009 iPhone, I agree with you. I agree. Totally agree. Check out the video that goes on Wednesday, the 26th. I pull up Andre Karpathy's vibe code sessions. It's probably pretty helpful for everyone to look at. But the gist of it is that if it's a single file, it's going to be a lot easier. And even with something as basic as he's building, his prompts are better than 99.9% of people because he knows how to talk to it because he built the thing. I'm interested in learning more about how you leverage AI to help business owners with their process. Okay. So there's a lot of different ways, but I think what's happening, this goes into the strategy for my kind of different offerings too, is I know how to do this for businesses. So I keep begging the question of why would I not just take on as few clients as possible that pay the highest, that are the easiest to do, and then use these things for myself. Because you gain no equity value when you're doing this for other people. And it's just like strictly for cash flow. So I think that that's kind of like this road to 100K. I don't think I'd want to go beyond that. Of course, you can't plan like beyond 30 days, right? But you have these goals. But just to answer your question, there's a ton of ways. And this plays into something that I was doing today for my own businesses, which is you start out by making a business map. That's what I call it. But every business has pretty much the same thing. Where I notice this with clients that come in, especially if you go to Upwork and someone has a posting and they're like, oh, need N8N specialist, or need AI, or need GPT, or need agent. All these people that are posting on there, I'd say like 99%. I'm still strong with the 99%. Most of the people in here, they just hear it from somewhere that they need it. And so there's like this big old wave. It looks horrible. There's this wave happening and people hear it and they're like, oh, I need this. The problem is you go and you take these calls, you have your discovery call. And if you just did that thing, like let's say I'll actually use a real use case. It's like, oh, I have this SaaS app and I'm a business. And let's say I've raised a seed round. And a seed round, depending on where you are, but if you're in Silicon Valley, it's anywhere from it goes up to like $20 million in seed funding. But then you also have pre-seed. But if you said that you're going for one of these companies and they've reached out and they said that they need this thing, and they posted something that's like, we need N8N because I saw a YouTube video about it, and we need it because we can go get the customers, and getting the customers is gonna be awesome. But if you didn't do this thing I'm about to explain of like mapping out the process of what the customer journey looks like and the whole like pipeline of the business from marketing to sales to closing to the fulfillment of the thing to the retention plan that you have to customer success or customer failure, offboarding, all these things, you're going to waste a lot of time because you have a leaky bucket. So in this case, if I had a client and the client's like, hey, let's do LinkedIn scraping, and we're going to throw that into cold email outreach, and they just said that, and they just said, oh, we want you to go and we're going to pay you to give us this big old list based on, we want B2B SaaS people because we sell to those for whatever reason. And they're companies that are over, $100 million in market cap, and we're going to pull that. So you need to go out to PitchBook because you can't get that from LinkedIn. And then, we're going to take in another qualifier, which is they need to have over 100 employees because this thing is going to be awesome for those types of people as enterprise. So, okay, you've got that. So then you end up like stitching this all together. That's what they think needs to happen because then they can just go. And then if they just law of numbers, big numbers, if you just send enough, if we send 10,000 over 5 days and we have 5%, they do this napkin math and they think it's awesome. Let's say you do that, but then you didn't know that, okay, the thing that's in here, like the link, like the call to action, whether it's booking a call or maybe it's just go self-sign up. Like if that next step, like if this was step 1, if step 2 is leading them to this like horrendous landing page that just doesn't deliver on the offer that was in the email, or they get there and even worse, it's broken, what's the point? Like, then you look bad because they're like, oh, it doesn't convert. You're like, well, wait a second, your thing sucks. So that's just getting to step 2. So it could be like step 3 is, oh, they booked a call in this case, or they did self-sign up. Let's say if they did self-sign up for this product, and if they go into here, and after they've done self-sign up, there's some other thing. Like there's maybe like 10 integrations or 10 steps or 10 pieces of data that we need to get that's blocking them, or an import with a CSV to enrich the experience that's broken. Like their funnel, not going to do great. And then again, they're going to look at you and they'll be like, well, your thing didn't work. And you're like, no. And then the case of the book call thing, it's like, okay, well, if you're pushing them through a funnel to go book a call and your sales team has no context beyond like you yapping at them to go and read something about the person on LinkedIn. Like, point is if you don't have this map of how the business works, then it just is like a swing and a miss because you're going to be just, again, going towards this bucket that's got a huge hole in it. So no one's going to stay in here. You want to fill the bucket up with customers and then keep them happy. So you're trying to like plug that thing the whole time. And there's always going to be a new thing to plug. Like, it's just how leaky is your bucket. Your bucket will always be leaky. It's just how good is it, right? That's what retention is. So what I do is, having done this the right way and the wrong way, is you basically have that call and you're just trying to figure out, how does this work? Like, can you walk me through the steps for the marketing? For like, what are you doing now? What's your proven method? The sales, the onboarding, the fulfillment, all these. A really good book actually about that. It's called Traction. And it's around a system called EOS. This is the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And this is something that I preached and actually hated at the time, but I've been preaching since because it worked. Our business delivery dudes, we were all over the place and you couldn't communicate value across the whole org. Like you couldn't communicate value, you couldn't communicate new releases, couldn't get everyone on the same page without this. But it also required you to go through these steps and iron them out. And I mean, we sat there every Monday and we'd be like, I don't even know what our proven marketing thing is, but let's just keep trying different ones. And this one seems to be working. And then every quarter you go and you figure these out. So that's what I would do. And then once you've identified which one is the biggest bottleneck, like this step takes time, but you're basically sitting there and they like that because they're like, whoa, like they're thinking out loud. They're going to maybe get like a little jittery because they might not have all the answers, but that's your job, is to like pull it out of them. And then you'd be scribbling down the steps similar to like this. Like I'm doing this for my business right now, which is like I've dealt with customers and clients doing it manually to define an SOP. And I wouldn't go and automate this myself had I not done it and made, like tens of thousands of dollars doing it manually. So then having these systems in place for your own business, if you're selling these into people, like it makes it a lot easier. I can give you an example of like why. If you have a customer that's a friend and they're not responding to things and you're trying to get their feedback on a piece of work, but then it's been 10 days and you've nudged them a couple times and then they look at the thing and it's like, oh my gosh, it's on fire, hair on fire moment, fire drill. You're like, it's okay. Like, we're good. This is how things go. The only reason that you're having this feeling and why it feels dragged out is because we haven't had that ping pong effect. And so that would be a part of this creator process map where it's like, okay, well, you'd have somewhere in here where it's like after you've closed the sale, after you've fulfilled the work, if no feedback, greater than 48 hours, you can ping them, say, hey, just wanted to put this here, want to let you know. And then you don't do it in like an annoying way. It's like, I'm even thinking like of providing like an example with like an illustration. It's like, hey, it's like we're playing ping pong and I just hit you the ball back. And it reframes it from being like this annoying thing that's like in their inbox to like, oh man, like, yeah, we're just like intellectually jousting right now. And we're on the same team. We're just practicing so we can get the best thing. So those are some good questions. Was there any other in there? I don't think so. No. Great question. I answered this just now. It'll be up on Wednesday. Make sure you check it out. Thanks again for the feedback and definitely ask more. Cool. So next up is I'm actually working on a new offer because I've been testing things out in the arena. So I have this thing called Trouble Free. It's a community. And I've been trying to figure out like how do I deliver the most value based on what I want to continue doing. Like how do I take the things that I know, the things I already do, and how I enjoy spending my time and basically like monetize them, but in a fair way that everyone wins. And so my first offer that I was thinking was like, okay, cool. It's going to be like $29 a month and it's going to go up every 10 because that's what everyone does. And I had thought that I could do like, I was going to funnel in the first 30 people and then flip it to paid and that everyone would just get like a credit card form, but they don't. You have to like literally kick everyone out. So I have like 40 people in there and I have to kick them out now. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe this new offer is for a different cohort. Like the original was like, it's AI for everyone. It's for non-technical folks and technical, meaning like if you wanted to, I'm just going to put everything that I know in there and I'm going to market it and position it for people that know this wave's coming and they don't know what to do. That was the original one. And that's what I'm going back to because when I ran into this issue where I was like, oh man, I have to like kick them out. Maybe I try to make it exclusive and it's like, oh, it's a 150 person thing. And I'm like, not your guru because I was on this like idea that like that's a bad thing. But at the end of the day, a lot of people do want to learn from me because I have spent a lot of time. So I just need to realize that it is a community and I will be the leader of it, obviously. And that people will also engage more if they want to share. If not, I don't really care. Like if they're learning and they don't engage that much, that's great. But I'll be putting into place some basically like psychological, I guess they're tricks, but it's really like if you think about a video game, like how do video games work? You achieve something, you get stars, you get gold, you get a level, and you feel accomplished. So I'm trying to think of like how do you do that without it being like a trick? It's like how do you make it is still a trick, but it's tying it to the value. So I think the offer will be forget the 150 thing. I have a nice video sales letter that's like super catchy that I spent 3 weeks making. And I'm going to put that back up. I'm going to start it at 29. It's going to go up $10 everything. And then in here will be a roadmap to being an AI pro. And so I'm going to just basically make a really long video where I'll have the whiteboard. And I'm going to go through like how I'd use AI for sales, how I'd use AI for recruiting, how I'd use AI if I want to do automated emailing, how I'd use AI if I was learning to code, how I use AI if I was learning TypeScript or Swift or a new topic, how to learn anything with AI, how to use it to digest new books, new topics, how to turn podcasts into blogs, blogs into LinkedIn, like all these use cases. There's probably going to be 100 of them. And then I'm going to record a long video. And if each one takes 2 minutes, that's great. It's a 200-minute video, just me yapping like this. And then I'll chop it all up. And then it'll be the 100 step to AI Pro roadmap, something like that. And then I can just take clips of that and then go market them against a new audience on Shorts. And it's going to be really easy for me because I have a gajillion different ideas. And it seems like every single day someone's asking me how to do something. So I just need to productize it and package it. And that goes into the next part, which is strategy. So I just was asking myself today after I've done some client work that's not so fun. And I've launched this school, but not really. Like, I followed my initial plan, which was like get a bunch of people in there. And then I went to flip and realized I couldn't. So I'm like rethinking. I'm like, okay, well, going into next month, how do I do the most amount right now such that I can be like blasting off in April? And I just basically write down like, you are the product of the things that you like spending time on, the things that you do spend time on. And so right now I really enjoy researching and building with AI. That's just my jam. Like I really like doing that. I like building SaaS products, but they have to be in my stack. So if I want to actually accomplish something, I need to know how to do it, right? So jumping around and working on other people's projects for client work when it's a total mess or if it's some technology I don't know, that's not profitable. And I'm putting profit first. Like I need to take that in and then I need to reinvest it so I can get growth and I can get more momentum. So I just kind of start thinking of like, okay, well, how do I take all these skills that I have and then leverage the crap out of them? So when it comes to the client stuff, it ties into the question from the guy earlier. Right? It's like, okay, well, when it comes to this, so far I've just been doing it all manually. And I did a process map of all the things that I'm doing, right? And then all the things that I could be doing to handle it better. So again, I've done it manually, but now it's time to put those into work. Because I've made tens of thousands of dollars doing it, I feel comfortable now to start automating some of the pieces. And then it's automating a process that I've already defined, the way that I speak, the way that I act, the timing of it, all that. And the V1 is just to get it all lined up. And then it's going to be about the tweaking to make sure that it's like, okay, if it hits some certain threshold, I don't want anything to go out because it's going to put my ass on the line if it's not right. So it's just getting it lined up so that those automations and those things that kick one another off, it's like dominoes, that they end up coming back to me. But a lot of the legwork's done. A good example of this is I stole this from Nick Sarave. He's a fantastic guy. He's literally the reason I started doing daily uploads. He's the reason why I have this Scribbly thing. I'm like a Walmart version of his account, literally. But I'm learning a lot from him. He's like, if you want make.com, like how to make money with make stuff, he's like the GOAT at that. So shout out to him. And one of the automations that I took from him that I'm going to be building out and enhancing for my stuff in N8N is this proposal thing. So I did this manually in that I didn't have any sort of workflow kicking it off. But what I did do is I just had it so when I did a call, the discovery call, which is like, you're going to always have that until you're like super famous and people trust you so much that they'll just like enter into the stuff without a call. But I like talking to people is you fill out all these like things while you're on the call. So you're like, okay, here's the one-liner about the business. Oh, they're a SaaS business that just wants to drive business to their app. And here's the process map. And here's what I think they should do based on it. But I'm not totally sure. So we should probably maybe think of some stuff to brainstorm. And here's a list of all the problems and what they're doing now and their budget and their business size and all this. And then his one had, I think it's like 5 steps. My one has a bunch more steps, not meaning it's better, right? His is a different use case because I'm not building out the same stuff, but mine will essentially do the same exact thing where it's like, okay, you end up with this like proposal that has like all your social proof on it. So I have like, oh, like at the beginning of these videos, I say, oh, I did, XYZ before this. And then I put in my client stuff on there. And that's just like one of the like 30 things where it did the admin work of taking the call and then turning it into the proposal so I don't have to go do it. So it's just going to compound, and I'll probably do like 1 or 2 at a time, but that is dependent on me getting N8N dialed in with Supabase. Because I think that's another SKU I could offer where it's like, it's going to be sick. And I'll talk more about it in a sec. The way I think about it is Chick-fil-A. If you live in the US, if you've ever been to a Chick-fil-A, they always act the same. If you go to one in a mall in the middle of like Kentucky, or if you go to one in Miami Beach, they're going to have the same thing that they say. That's because they're well trained. They have standard operating procedures, SOPs, and that's what allows them to do it. So on more of the strategy stuff, with school, I've been thinking like, how do I leverage agents in these N8N instances and the Supabase stuff that's going to be just chock full of information about me and what I do, and I can train literally all of my YouTube videos on it and my voice, and it's going to just have PG vector galore, which is like, vectorization that helps you with RAG and whatnot. It's just going to be doing a lot of stuff around me. Well, cool. It's going to be like a clone of Parker. And then I can start doing growth agent work, where I saw something that was really interesting, where I talked about it in a previous video, where it's like, okay, if you go to a YouTube video and they don't have chapter markers, set up an automation that does that, and then just say like some little tag at the end. So that at the top of every single video, it's just like, oh, Parker. Maybe it's like Parker trouble free. Boom, there's an ad. Because the top comment on a video is, hey, where this is the chapter guy, and it has 50,000 likes. How many people saw that? How many people saw it and didn't like it? I think it's going to get millions of impressions. So I think one is setting that up, testing the limit with it, see how many different accounts you can do based on their upload schedule, such that the account doesn't get flagged or marked as spam or whatever. But I think that's just one. I think I call it, it's like other people's money. Like that's what they, OPM, but I think OPYT, other people's YouTube. So what are the other accounts where it would make sense for your face and your brand to show up? Because in the age of AI, brand and community is going to be everything. So basically, by personal branding, you make your face the asset. I'm fine with that. I think that that's a really good defensible thing. So instead of being like faceless, I'm totally being face. And I want to just have more things like this, or like if this is idea one, I want to be coming up with a bunch of different other ones. Like I immediately think for the Parker X Builds channel, I should be on the Cursor forum. And even if I do this manually, if I make it a practice to answer 30 questions a day, these are such easy questions for me to answer. And this could be across all the different channels. So it's like, do it a bunch of times manually, train it, have it go back into Supabase, learn the answers to the questions, then you can set up the automation after you've done it for 30 days. I mean, if you did it for 30 days with 30 answers, you have 900 different queries that are questions and answers. So that's a fair amount of data to then train on. And then you could train it on the docs. So you could have a doc rocker that goes out and is like, okay, these are the things that this channel, the Parker X Builds channel, answers questions about. And then you just give it an array. Yeah, you could give it an array of different URLs that you want it to go and monitor and poll to check to see if there's any new questions. You could be the first answer on every single forum relevant to your niche. That's sick. So yeah, I need to really get going on that. I think the same thing with retention agents, where think about this. When I open the floodgates, they're not even floodgates. When I kick everyone out of my group called Trouble Free and I invite everybody back in, I don't want to have to deal with like the limitations of school's tech. I love school for the fact that they exist. It's nice, but I dislike a lot of the stuff that they have because it's limited. So how do you get around that? Well, I think you could get around it by I invite myself as an admin on a different account, and then I can control that account, whether it's through Puppet, I don't know, any one of these like testing frameworks or like scrapey things. Like you could literally do it. You could target, you could pull. You do the same thing that I did up here for OPYT of like going and answering it manually for a bunch of times. but I could go and I could do it in my own paid community. And I think this is going to be a trend moving forward, but I want it to seem like me. So I can't have it be like a robot. So maybe I just say it's like Parker's brother or something. And then I put like a little like gray thing over it. It would confuse people, but it would be cool because like, what is this? Because it would answer almost instantly. I'd probably crawl, walk, then run, where it's like I'd go and I'd do the thing manually. I'd be training it. I'd be sending everything back. I'd treat school in my community. I'd exfiltrate all that data back into my database, build it up. Once there's like 1,000 rows or something in there, then I can start to walk, which would in this case be probably getting a human in the loop. So like, hey, we're thinking of answering this question, but if you could just take a look at it, that'd be great. And then I can give it a yes, no, either via text over Twilio or whatever, an email. And then after that, this thing will just get better. And that could be a SKU for someone else. But I don't want to give this alpha away. I could talk about it, but I need to actually prove it. What else is in the onboarding? Well, it'd be that same process map, right? So I'd need to do one for this. It's like, okay, whoops. Be like, okay, people come in from YouTube. Here they are. They go into your school. What do they get? How do I keep them? How do I make them happy? How do I make them feel special? Well, I was listening to someone that has a consignment store school, which is super niche, but they're making like 15K a month off of it, which is great for her. And what she does is she just tags everybody in there and then does like contextual tags. So it's like, yeah, they get tagged in something, but she had gone, looked at the profile, looked at one of the links that existed on someone's profile. And so you just list that out. You'd be like, okay, list profile links, or like get them, scrape page. So maybe it's like, oh, new person joins. We go, we learn about them. It's just, what would you do manually? You'd go and you'd look at the person. You'd see if they have a GitHub. You'd see if they have a Twitter. You'd see if they have a blog. You'd see something relevant about them. Maybe what they're trying to accomplish is found. And then those are all in a database somewhere on Supabase. And then it basically does a similarity search using those vectors to see, oh, hey, so-and-so has done something like this. Tag them. It's so much better. One thing she does that I would have to do manually, but maybe you could get away with like using something like Tavis, is a personalized video. So the personalized video she does is like, hey, Parker, this is so great for you to be here. And you do some like 60-second thing that's like undeniable that it's real. But maybe Tavis is good enough where like that first part is like, hey, blank, is done with Tavis. I actually met these two founders. They bought a bunch of furniture from me in Austin, which is really funny. Hassan. Shout out Hassan and Quinn. They're worth hundreds of millions of dollars in market cap now. Paper gains. Email flow, future unlocks. This is what I talked about a little bit earlier about like kind of figuring out like, okay, well, what's the offer? And in the school, you just treat them as SKUs. So you'd have the roadmap, and that's waived. So that's $0. That's included. And then I had this idea for verified prompts. And I didn't end up working on it because I'm like, this is too much work to do for $39. Sorry. But a verified prompt stands out because you could only have it be in this database if it's made you money. And then there's some like classifier on there where it's like, okay, if this prompt has generated somebody over 10K, they get to submit it. And then you also need to provide the evals. So like examples of it. It doesn't have to be like run in some fancy tool. It's just literally like a G sheet. And then you need an explainer of how to use it. And then you need the use case. And then you need the model. Now that's actually worth a lot. Like if you know that you could buy this thing, that's sick. And then maybe there's some way where it's like, okay, you can either unlock that by doing a number of points or you pay $1,000 or something. And then the people that are in there that made up a decent chunk of this prompt library would get a profit share. That could be cool. Because then it doesn't put it all on me. And that was a big part of why I didn't want to do like the normal school thing of, oh, Parker's this guru. But like, guess what? I'm going to just throw that word in the incinerator and I am the effing guru. No, I want to just, I'm big on the idea of like the shared pool of knowledge is way more powerful. It's just undeniable. But I'm trying to figure out, I ultimately need to seed the platform. I need an incentive to seed said platform. So lastly, I wanted to talk about this before I actually got to go do client work. I fixed a vibe code app and I got to go explain it to someone, to the client. So it was cool though, $1,000 for a day. N8N and Supabase build. So what I did was I realized that the normie person, which is fine, the average N8N user will go and they'll get the cloud version. And that's fine. But the problem with it is a couple things. I want it in my stack. Like I want to be able to do a bunch with it. So when I look at my stack and I'm like, okay, in order to accomplish all these goals that I have, and in order to set up this awesome flow for clients where I only do the things that I really like and it does all the filtering for me to find what I like and all that, like it needs to be in a system that's like super versatile. And I think that it also pays to know how to do this. So a case for that would be like the typical one would be, yeah, N8N. And yeah, it's more expensive to self-host or cloud host, but that's not really the reason. It's more that I just need to know how all of it works so I can push it to the limit. So if I wanted to do self-host, like this is like V1, this is V2, and then this is V3 of where I'm going. So V2 is what I started today. It's what I actually I didn't roll, I just cloned it down. And what it had was a Docker, so you need Docker, and it has a Docker compose file. What that does, Docker, is if you've ever seen like the little whale, it's like a whale, right? And the whole thing is that if Docker is running, it puts whatever you're working on in what's called a container. And the container it's called containerization. So you can take that container and you can stick it anywhere because the container is running on its own operating system. And the container can be put onto Azure, Google Cloud, AWS. It can be run on any computer anywhere. And you don't get the excuse of like, oh, it doesn't work on my machine. So that's Docker. And so what I was doing was I was like, okay, well, what's the stack out there? Well, they have the N8N kit, which has Docker running it through Ubuntu. Ubuntu is Linux, if anyone didn't know it. And Linux runs the world. So at least all the computers and data centers, VMs, VPSs, all that. So I take that and that was included. And then they just had an Alpine Postgres, which is great. What wasn't great was Qdrant and Ollama. And I get it. These are nice little tools. Not little. They're nice tools if you want to like be local and I don't know. It's just not for me. So I was looking at this and I was like, okay, well, to my point earlier about your stack, guess who's a master of Supabase? Me. I've spent way too much time with it, but it's great because Supabase can just take these three and smush them together. So that's what we're doing. So instead of it having be in this like one Docker file, where the Docker compose file basically declares all the services that are in it, and it spins them up, and then you can hook that into a CI/CD or a continuous integration, continuous development pipeline, aka when you push new code to change stuff in there in the container, when you're doing it locally, and you push it to GitHub, it will run a Docker compose on a machine hosted by GitHub, and then it'll run through like all the different things. Same thing applies with if you have like a Next.js server, which we're going to talk about in this V3. If you have a Next.js server and you run npm run build, which is the process of taking like all the different files that you wrote in Next, which is a framework, meta framework around React, it takes that and then it basically puts them into the HTML and the JavaScript and all the stuff that is only needed, like the build files, right? So it makes it a lot less readable, but it smushes it down. And if you did that on a normal VPS without doing it through GitHub, if you did like a $5 VPS, literally it'll choke the thing because it requires a significant amount of CPU relative to a $5 VPS. So it literally just kills it. I don't know if that's a hate on Next or not. I like Next. But point is, with V3, where we're going, is I can have my own N8N and Supabase, and that'll run on its own little container. And that little container is independent of other things, but it includes all this. And what each one does is really special because with Supabase, you get edge functions. An edge is basically the network location closest to the person that's making the call. So if I have a website that I visit that's using an edge function and I'm in Cape Town, South Africa, it's going to try to do it closest to me rather than in New York. And what that unlocks is OAI calls, which is huge. You can do it elsewhere, but it's pretty convenient with those. You have edge functions. You have auth, social. You have a DB, which is Postgres. And within those, it does all the awesome Postgres stuff, right? You have triggers. You have RPC functions. An RPC is remote procedural something. But it's basically like a function that lets me put the calculations on the database. Because the database, powerful as heck. Like, if I wanted to do an upload of, let's say, 18 months worth of calendar events, which is what I did for MAP, there's a lot of information. So you wouldn't want to be putting it all on one network call across the line. And you do it in batches. You could do an RPC call. So there's all this stuff you could do in here. And in there, PG vector. That's an extension. And that can basically add a little row that's like, like the AI glitter, right? But in there, it's all the numbers. So 8, 1, -1. It figures out where that bit of information, not bit, but piece of information in that row exists in vector space. So similarity search, RAG, yada, yada, yada. Point is, that'll all be set up. I can do unlimited stuff. If it's on a beefy machine, you literally would not be able to break this thing. And then you're going to get better at DevOps. And then you can hook into other things. So that's when I say, okay, I want to have the growth agent, growth other people's YouTube agent. And I can spin that up, right, as its own container. That's pretty sick. And then we communicate back to this. Ta-da. Same thing as if I have trouble-free, which I'm in dire need of redoing our site. It's so bad. But if I have trouble-free, and I want to be able to communicate with my database about whatever, maybe training something on coming up with new ideas, or I don't know. Eventually not being on school and being on there, that's important. And I need to be able to communicate there. Another one would be a school agent, that kind of retention one. And it needs to be able to communicate back. And basically, I want to say exfiltrate, but it's like clone the data. So like pulling it all out of there and storing it so we can train and come back and take action on it. So that wouldn't be able to happen over here. I mean, it would, but it wouldn't be in the stack that I'm familiar with. And because Supabase supports all this stuff, then you get all the goodies. You get Claude, you get, whatever. It just made me think. I guess I have time for one more. I realized today that by hosting on here and by taking advantage of this thing called Warp Dispatch, you could create a DevOps flow that deals with auto updating, because once a month is what's recommended by Supabase for their upgrades, is when you'd go and upgrade your stuff. And when you're self-hosting, this is what everyone's all like scared about, is like, oh, like you're gonna have downtime. Well, guess what? There's ways around it, and it just set something to go do it for you. So this is just like a total unformed idea, but it'd basically be like you'd have a set of agents that just goes and does that. I don't even need to draw it out, but like you'd list out like what are the top 5 DevOps tasks. Is it like snapshots? Well, guess what? You don't need an agent for that. Is it like backups, which is kind of the same? Don't need agent for that. You could just do a cron. You could do a PG boss. That's another one you put in your PG boss. But I need more research on this, but it just made me think of it because this warp dispatch thing, it uses O1 and then it comes up with a plan and it's trained on bash. So it's like you take advantage of whatever their like trained, fine-tuned thing is, and then run an instance in here. So if they have a Mac app, you'd need to figure out how to run a VM with Mac on it. I don't know. For another time. But yeah, I got to get to it. I got client work to do, and it's super late. But, oh man, I had this one too. This is for build ideas. I just love scribbling down ideas when I see them. I was like, okay, I need to have a checklist for new ideas. This one's dumb, but it's fun. It's like, oh, I'd have a fully customizable quote React package because every single website on the internet has like testimonials. And I don't know if you could make it better and make it look really good and then just open source it, that'd be cool. But why would you do it? What's the value? So I had said like, oh, for my new ideas, I need to have a checklist. Like, what's the one-liner? What's the Y Combinator one-liner? No fluff. Why would you do it? Pretty good reason. I don't know. You should have a reason to do it. What's the value? What's the probability that it's going to have a good outcome? That's it. That's the video for today. Whoa, my hair's crazy. It is almost 10 o'clock on a Monday, and I still have so much to do. Oh well. Without further ado, go ask a question and like and subscribe. And oh my gosh. All right, I'll see you tomorrow.